So Mandy, once you've established the pay rate and you've got the right candidate, your next tip is about employment contracts. And I mean, we could probably do a whole separate session on that, but if I could get you to share with us your insights into the employment contract, that would be great.
Yep, great. All right. So with an employment contract, it can be written, it can be verbal, or it can be implied. So, for example, a small family business that's employing husband, wife, daughters, uncles, things like that, family, friends, they often grow to be quite a sizable business. Now, in saying that, they may not have employment contracts in place. However, when you employ somebody, if you don't have it in place, it's an implied contract. So you should be paying them a reasonable rate. I always state to my clients it's best to have things written down, because if it ever goes to dispute, that's your evidence of the agreement. So with an employment contract, there needs to be an offer of employment. That offer then needs to be accepted. Each party has accepted an obligation to perform his or her part of the agreement. Both parties intend to create a legally enforceable bargain which will be binding. So each party has the capacity to enter into a contract, so people are of sound mind when they're signing these contracts, and they're written in plain English that people can actually read and interpret and understand. Both parties truly consent to the terms of the agreement, and the contract does not contradict a legal requirement. So, for example, they're paying an employee less than the minimum wage. You must comply at least with the modern award pay rates.
I see you. Sorry to interrupt, Mandy. I see you laughing there, Shane, about the written in plain English. Have you had different experience?
Yeah, you know, my lawyer would hate me for saying this, but some of the stuff that, you know, the legal talk lawyer contracts, and certainly our experience has been just something fairly simple, just 1 or 2 pages, you know, documenting a conversation, even in dot points, you know, rather than legal verbatim taking out a 36-page contract. And, you know, people are happier to sign it, they understand, it doesn't end up in weeks and weeks in more senior roles going between legal counsel and costing thousands. So I'm all for just a quick note and a couple of quick signatures, you know, dot points, and to Mandy's point, making sure that you're not trying to, you know, contract anybody out and of their entitlements, and it's all done in good faith.
Yes, yeah, very good point. And it doesn't need to be a 30-page document. For people who are generally covered by a modern award, that sets out the terms and conditions of employment, and all they need on top of that as an offer is really a letter of offer stating, well, this is your start date, this is what we're paying you, confidentiality requirements, leave, things like that, all those key issues, and that can be done in a 2-page document with a position description attached to it. And essentially that's their contract of employment. So, but I would say for more professional services, so your best sales consultant, have a detailed employment contract. You'll need in there things like confidentiality, be quite specific there, and restraint of trade. You don't want that person going to work for your competitor within a very short amount of time or taking your client list. So you need to be careful there and have a really well drafted employment contract. And just on that point, and Shane, you'll probably agree, is that you don't need to go to a lawyer for an employment contract. You can come to an IR expert. I've done many and varied employment contracts from direct employees, independent contractors, people like that. So I can certainly help people draft up an effective employment contract.
Excellent.
And I guess, yeah, my comment there is the most important thing is having one, regardless of who drafts it. You know, the number of times we've ended up, you know, working with clients, you know, where everything starts out well, runs for 18 months or 2 years, and then for whatever reason the relationship breaks down. You know, anything documented, even some scribble on a napkin from a lunch would have helped. You know, things like overtime or flat rates. So, yeah, absolutely agree.
Yes, yeah, and it comes down to the evidence. If they do lodge a dispute, you will need to trot out your evidence and they will obviously have theirs. So with a detailed employment contract, which you can always vary down the track, you know, that's your coverage for your side of the agreement.
So Mandy, once you've had the employee for a while, and this is something that I notice with some of our newer clients, is they may have not have done a performance appraisal for 2.5 years. How important are performance appraisals to your HR strategy?
Very important, I believe, because if it comes to an underperformance issue, you know, there's not a lot that you can do if you don't have the evidence for an unfair dismissal claim. So I always take the approach with my clients is that all employees should be periodically appraised on their performance, and you need to be prepared and go into a meeting, a structured meeting, and you need to give them both the positive and the negative aspects here. So in terms of the negative, it's always that constructive feedback on where they're underperforming, and the positive is you're really performing well in these areas, but we need you to perform better in these other areas. So my first point there is to be prepared. Make sure that you know, you've got all the information. You've got past performance appraisals. You've got training records. You've got, you know, error rates, customer feedback, things like that. So you can really discuss what it is in the performance appraisal, and never ambush the employee. So always give them notice of the meeting. So we're going to talk about your performance. You know, come along to the meeting and we'll have a good chat then. Don't just focus on the negatives. So just because they're not meeting sales targets, you know, they might be working well in other areas. So always give them that balanced perspective. Document it. That is very important, particularly if they can't improve their performance and it leads to a termination process. So you need to have your documentation there, but just before that, give them an opportunity to respond to your feedback. In particular, if it's negative, you talk very frankly about what it is, and you give them the performance target. So say what you need it to be, but then you get their side of the story. So what's been happening? Why are you underperforming in this area? And that's particularly important if it leads to underperformance. It's the procedural fairness side of things that you need to make sure it happens.